Hello, my name is Reid Redden, and I'm a sheep and goat specialist for Texas A&M AgriLife Extension. Here today, one of my favorite days or series of days of the year, and that's the Texas A&M AgriLife Sheep Shearing School. This is our 5th consecutive year to have this particular school that I got started when I came back to Texas. And it's fitting that here with me today is Brent Roeder. He's a sheep specialist at Montana State, and when I was doing my PhD program, Brent got me into shearing in 2007, and I've been involved in shearing schools since then. And we host these and train people to learn this art of shearing that we're trying to make a bit more into a science and keep shearing sheep because sheep that grow wool have to have their wool shorn, and we have to continue to have that trade out there that do it properly to harvest this wool. So that we can continue to supply that to the people that are looking for it. So Brent, how long have you been shearing, and what do you think these shearing schools do for the sheep industry?
Well, I guess I should say that I'm a former Texan too, so moved up to Montana for graduate school. The shearing schools, even up north, it's important for all of us to work together to have these shearing schools. Wool right now has gained a lot of popularity. There's a lot of sustainability to wool. And so we do have some issues out there in some circles with some ethics issues on shearing. So really, I didn't have a formal education in shearing growing up. So really what all the sheep producers are trying to do is sponsor these types of schools and the industry and the associations so that we get these young, they're not all young, and so we have some middle-aged people here, both men and women, learning how to shear and teach them the proper method. That way we harvest the wool correctly. Wool last year, some of that wool was selling for $2,000 a ton, so it's worth a lot of money. We need to get it off the sheep correctly with the least amount of injury to both the shearer and the animal that we're shearing on. So.
Yeah, absolutely. This, from the outside looking in at shearing, it looks like it's just completely back-breaking work. It is hard work, but there's a lot of people in the shearing circles that have really worked hard to improve equipment, to improve the shearing pattern, to improve the process of shearing so that people that get into this trade can shear, into their 60s and 70s because they're doing it in an ergonomic fashion that doesn't cause injury and it doesn't blow people's backs out and knees out and things like that. And so, yes, sheep have been shorn for 4,000 plus years, if not longer than that. But we're trying to make it even better, and it takes a team of people to do that. And so we generally have around a dozen to at most 2 dozen shearers in these schools that we host annually. And a person that comes to a 4-day school comes in, if they have absolutely no knowledge at the end of it, they can shear a sheep. But it takes years and years to get that pattern down, and we have a lot of people that come back year after year to get better and better at shearing, and so that's great to see. And it's great to see them go out and provide that service to the industry in Texas and elsewhere in the United States.
Yep, the pattern that we learn is an Australian pattern. It's the worldwide pattern, so the pattern is designed for the comfort of the sheep, actually, not so much for the comfort of the shearer. We have to mold our positions around the sheep. Basically, we're putting the sheep in the position to keep them the most comfortable, the least stress on those animals, and a position that stretches the hide out the best so that we can keep our handpiece and comb and cutter running right on the skin, which is the best cutting period, which harvests the wool at the proper length, but also minimizes the cuts on the sheep and minimizes the stress on the sheep. So.
And some people would see that and think, well, gosh, why don't you just not shear these sheep? But we as humans have engineered, not really engineered, that might be the wrong term, but bred animals so that they do not shed their wool. So instead of it just shedding off and deteriorating out in the nature, out in the pasture, we stop that shedding process. So it's now our moral obligation to harvest that fiber, and then it is one of the most natural fibers to be worn by humans or put into blankets, and there's just a ton of uses for wool, and it is our moral obligation to harvest it since we have the animals that need it to be harvested.
Wool is a completely natural, sustainable, recyclable product that's out there. There's starting to be a lot of concern around the world with plastic contamination, especially in water. The New Zealanders and Australians have done quite a bit of research here recently looking at fleece type clothing, and are finding that when we wash that type of clothing, we're releasing basically millions of microfiber plastic particles that get into our water supply, and it's starting to show up basically everywhere. Wool, we don't have that problem. Over time, it degrades naturally, and so there's a lot of interest from the consumer side to go back to a natural product like that that has the thermal properties that wool has.
Yeah, it is a natural fiber, and that's something unique. I personally wear wool socks every day. I've even gotten to where, technology has allowed us to grow the right type of wool and treat it so that it be worn as underwear. And so I wear wool underwear, and it has a natural feel that you don't really get from any other fiber. And so it's unique, and encourage you to go out there and take a look at what's out there and try it out.